What's the most scary or mind-blowing fact about the ocean? Story 1. Greenland sharks can live to be 500 years old, just lurking and swimming and doing sharky things for 500 years. And it's suggested that they can live even longer than that. Just to think that a single creature, not even a tree, something that has to hunt and avoid disease and other things that could harm it, has lived a longer life than many of the great civilizations we study is mind-boggling. Also, I heard that parasites eat their eyes, so they swim around blind most of their life. Greenland sharks are also the third or fourth largest living shark after the whale shark, basking shark, and possibly great white shark. Their diet also includes seals, other sharks, and even polar bears when they get the chance. Story 2. If you pass a certain level underwater, you can no longer float to the surface. You have to use all your strength to swim back up, which can use up too much oxygen and suffocate. Story 3. The Corryvreckan Maelstrom in Scotland is a permanent whirlpool that is the third strongest in the world. It can produce 15 feet high standing waves. Story 4. At its deepest, Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench, you could fit Mount Everest and still have close to 10,000 feet of water between it and the surface. Bull sharks live in the ocean and rivers. That's a scary fact. The ocean at night is probably the scariest thing I can think of. It's pitch black. You can't see anything, but most of it can see you. In fact, there's plenty of predators that prefer to do their hunting at night. That's scary to me and why I don't swim at night, among other things. Story 5. The fact that the famous picture of the blobfish is not actually what a blobfish looks like. When scientists first found them, they did not know that the blobfish is not as resilient as other deep-sea creatures, and that particular blobfish was pulled to the surface too quickly and had its skin and flesh torn off from immense force of rapid decompression. The blobfish in that photo has its skin torn off. What's even worse is that the companies have made t-shirts and even squishies entirely based off of this photo. It still chills me to this day. Yeah, this messes me up. I loved the blobfish and the adorable blobfish plush toys with its little tongue hanging out, and then to learn that the puffy lips of it were the distended, bloated flesh of a rapidly decompressed dead animal. Man, it's like seeing a cutesy little stuffed toy of a rotten corpse. Story 6. A particular large great white shark was tagged and tracked. It disappeared, and scientists noticed that it was suddenly going deeper and deeper underwater to depths that would probably crush it. Stranger still, the temperature was hot, very hot, as in the tracker is probably now in the stomach of another animal. So look at it this way. A fully grown great white shark was killed and eaten by a mystery creature, which retreated back into the very depths of the ocean. Story 7. There's a type of jellyfish in the Philippines that touches you and kills you. Yearly, it kills around 500 people. When its poison gets in your bloodstream, it makes your heart stop. It doesn't attack you, moves by pure instinct, and it's hard to notice if you are swimming, so people touch it by accident. Story 8. So the ocean is a giant carbon sink for our planet, just like soil. The corals are bleaching because the capacity of the carbon sink is being used up and causing acidification of the water. Carbon emissions are caused by humans, which cause exponentially more humans, which cause exponentially more carbon emissions. Our current trajectory is an ever-steepening slope. What happens to the slope when we lose a carbon sink that makes up literally 70% of the planet? The slope becomes a vertical wall. Humanity is heading for a figurative wall. I can't imagine correcting our situation once we hit that wall. Damage would be so sudden and far-reaching all at once. Source: my degree in environmental science and working on a bachelor's degree in marine biology. Story 9. Most of the oxygen in our atmosphere comes from single-celled bacteria in the ocean. A massive chunk of that comes from a single species of bacteria. The number of viral particles that target these organisms is vastly larger than the number of bacteria themselves. If a breakthrough marine virus, like an oceanic version of COVID, popped up, we could lose the majority of our oxygenetic bacteria in the blink of a geological eye. Story 10. The ocean is genuinely terrifying. Nothing on Earth has the raw, destructive power. Our world and society would be very different if those brave souls didn't traverse oceans to explore the world, then form trade routes. When I was younger, we had a boat that we would do channel trips in UK to France, and one time we got caught up in a storm. There were warnings, but it rolled in faster than anyone expected. It's the first time I've seen sheet lightning. literally the sky exploding and a web of electricity blanketing the sky as far as the eye could see. And we had 12-foot water swells, so our 4-berth motorboat was being tossed around like crazy. We couldn't anchor because the risk of drag causing the anchor to yank upwards and hit the bottom of the boat was very real. Being a kid, and therefore a mortal, I was on the deck laying down watching the sky as all this unfolded, still to this day the most awe-inspiring thing I've ever experienced. And that was just the sea, let alone the ocean. Story 11. Tsunami waves travel 500 miles an hour and can travel across the entire ocean in a day. The speed only reduces as it approaches land, since the shallow bottom acts like a barrier that blocks it. Also, the waves are invincible and virtually undetectable until they're nearing the shore. It gives you little time to evacuate and get to higher ground. There's no way to know how bad it will be until after it happens. Also, most real tsunamis look nothing like they're depicted in illustrations and fiction. Also, if you try to rescue injured victims right after the wave subsides and the coast is clear, you'll probably die when the second wave strikes. Could be even bigger than the first one. Also, the sea doesn't always recede before a tsunami. Although it's a warning sign that one is coming, not all tsunamis do that. Many times the sea doesn't recede and precede once at all. Many don't look scary until it's too late. Story 12. If the Chicxulub-type asteroid lands in the Pacific Ocean at any time, it would create the largest tsunami known. To give you an idea, the impact would have registered a 13 on the Richter magnitude scale. Edit. Forgot to add the Yucatan Peninsula is about 300 meters deep. Deep as in the Pacific Ocean is about 11 kilometers. The biggest on record so far when it comes to tsunamis is the Latula Bay, Alaska, about 524 meters, and was thanks to a landslide caused by an earthquake. Story 13. I don't know if this counts, but NASA originally founded to explore the ocean, and then their plans changed with no explanation to study space. It was as if they found something, and now with that in mind want to get off this planet. Well, one time, I was reading on Reddit and someone had to comment in a post like this one, and they were replying to a person saying how we know nothing about the Mariana Trench, and they had a theory about a species they made up called Homo abyssalis, and how they were underwater human relatives. Maybe NASA found something like that, we don't know. The only thing I know is that the guy was crazy and a very good author. Story 14. That the ocean conveyor circulation, also known as the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, AMOC, is what keeps northeastern North America and Europe as warm as it is. It's weakening significantly, and it could be the poster child for non-linear effects of climate change. Story 15. Heard this back in 2017, so bear with me as some details are a bit fuzzy. A probe in the 90s was sent into the Mariana Trench or something. It was connected to a boat through cables, and after the expedition was done, the cables would lift the pod back up. The scientists in the pod did what they needed to do, and asked to be led back up. Everything was going smoothly until the pod just stopped. Nobody knew what was going on. Everything was fine on both ends, just the cable wouldn't carry the pod upwards. After around 3 hours or so, the pod starts moving again like nothing ever happened, but when it came up, the bottom half had some huge bite marks in it, which were theorized to be roughly as big as the megalodon's bites would have been. Story 16. USS Thresher SSN 593 was a Permit-class sub that was sunk during deep dive tests. According to declassified documents, Thresher sat above crush depth for at least 24 hours, sending out 21 pings from the main sonar. Topside, USS Wolf, had problems locating Thresher, so every single man aboard the sub perished. They went below crush depth, and Robert Ballard was secretly given permission to find the wreck. It is considered one of the most deadly sub-accidents in history. Story 17. Sharks have sensory organs called ampulla or lorenzini that basically let them sense the heartbeats of things around them. Even if you're not acting panicked around one, they can literally sense your heartbeat and will hone in on the most stressed or nervous person in a group, even if that person is acting the least like prey. I've been lucky enough to spend most of my adult life working in the ocean and have been lucky enough to encounter hundreds of sharks during that time. It's so interesting to watch them pick out the weak link from a group of people, not even aggressively, just in a curiosity way because they feel the stress. Story 18. The botworm lives at the floor of the ocean and will eat absolutely anything, and that we didn't know about it until one was accidentally captured and put in an aquarium where it proceeded to eat all the fish in it, and I'm not talking like a personal aquarium, I'm talking a city aquarium. Story 19. Most oxygen on Earth comes from photoplankton in the ocean, not trees. Also, the giant squid wasn't seen alive until 2001 and was largely considered a myth before modern photography. I remember when we first got that footage of the squid. Was that really 2001? Story 20. Swimming in the open ocean is a totally different experience from swimming at the beach. You look in front of you, and after 30 to 40 feet is complete darkness. Behind you, 30 to 40 feet, and then darkness. Worst of all, you look below you, 30 to 40 feet, darkness. You're floating around in this vast ocean and you can't see anything, but deep down in your heart, you know you're not alone. You know that you can't see them, but they can see you. Story 21. It's possible that since we have explored such a low percentage of the ocean, that there are other intelligent creatures down there unable to explore the surface. I mean, the ocean is covering 70% of Earth. If we really explored only 5% of it, well, that's more than half of our planet we know nothing about. Story 22. You're a silhouette to everything that can see. No, seriously, think about that. If you're swimming in the daytime, damn near everything anywhere can see your body, awkwardly wiggling through the water. And you can't see them. You are helpless, blind, exposed, visible from absurd distances. Your attempts to swim make you look tempting, like some sort of animal born to be eaten by bigger, meaner animals, and you'll never see it coming. That said, I live on a coast and love being in the water, just not swimming in open ocean. There be monsters. Story 23. When my grandpa was a sailor, when he was younger, and did something he did was when they landed in port him, and his friends would jump off the dock and swim under the boat. One hot day as they ran towards the end of the dock to jump off, they got stopped by a man who said it was too dangerous. They did not believe him, so the man threw an empty can into the water a few meters from the dock, and these two massive hammerhead sharks swam out from under the dock to examine what fell in the water before swimming back under. Moral of the story, the ocean and its inhabitants can be scary. Story 24. Most ships cannot survive freak waves. They denied the existence of freak waves until one was recorded at an oil rig in North Sea. As a result, most ships, especially tankers and freight, are not designed to survive them. The best you can hope is that they avoid the areas where they are most common. Story 25. For me, it's the fact that jellyfish are the real killers. You probably won't see it, but then you feel an intense pain and your body shuts down, and then you drown. People are so afraid of sharks, but this is the real threat. I think the ratio of people killed by jellyfish compared to sharks is like 1,000 to 1. Story 26. Big wave riding. You drop down into the pit, its feet straight down, and your balls are about this big, and the whole thing's fucking roaring, pushing you forward, like you're on a freight train or something. Yeah, and if you lose it, the fish will be picking you out of the coral. It's the ultimate rush. There's nothing that comes close to it, not even sex. Just paddling out in a big surf is a total commitment. You can't just call time out if you don't like the way things are going. Story 27. Most people in the world live on the coast. Now, the coastline has this bad habit of fluctuating over time. When the ice caps are larger, large parts of land will be revealed. Japan, for instance, hasn't been an island for very long in geographical sense. Many species present in Japan just walked there from the mainland and went their separate evolutionary path when the ice caps melted, and they became separated from the mainland. There are cities along the coastlines of I think every major ocean that were sunk thousands of years ago. Story 28. The vastness of it all, and the possibility that anything could still be down there. Take the coelacanth, for example. The fish was thought to have been extinct since the late Cretaceous period, and it was rediscovered during 1938 on the South African coast. Story 29. This sounds so lame, but ocean's currents are amazing things. The sheer volume of water moved around the globe is awesome. It's responsible for much of the climate we experience, even on land. Just take a look at the Gulf Stream and the temperatures in northern Europe. They also move nutrients around. Colder, denser water carries more, which in turn will support more life. Like the Labrador Current, It's full of plankton and consequently one of the best fishing areas in the world. We sailed into it on the way to Ireland from New York City, and the change when we hit it was astounding. All of a sudden the wind died, a huge fog bank rolled in, the temperature plummeted, everyone ran for jackets, and all you could smell was fish. Should have noped out of there ASAP to get the wind back, but oh well. Story 30. There are parasites called Sacculina that attach themselves to crab. They take over the body and brain, then mutilate their bodies to carry their children and expel them into the ocean before the crab dies. Story 31. Right now, at this very moment, there are several people who are in the ocean alone, and nobody knows. They could be dragged away from shore. They could be on the beach alone. They could be lost on an island. They could be on a small fishing boat completely lost, and nobody knows where they are. Story 32. When I first moved to San Diego from Ohio, naturally I couldn't wait to hit the beach. I headed down to the ocean beach with my brother and friends, stripped down to my trunks and ran straight in, swimming out up to my neck, and then started to head back to shore, but the beach kept getting farther and farther away. Unbeknownst to me, I was caught in a huge rip, and I started to get very tired and scared that I was making zero progress to shore. Suddenly, an orange pontoon shot at me and a tanned arm stretched out and a voice shouted, "Grab hold!" I was helped by a lifeguard straight out of a Hasselhoff wet dream. I was at first reluctant to grab hold, but soon realized this was life or death. We got back to shore and I was told about rips and to swim along the shoreline until you got out of one. Welcome to Soakhole, Tenderfoot. Story 33. There's this 10-foot worm that lives under the ocean floor, except its head, which is level with the ocean floor. It's got feelers and pincers, so if a fish swims over it, it grabs on with the pincers and drags the fish under to eat it. Story 34. I've heard that divers at a certain depth cannot genuinely tell which way is up or down, as the darkness is so all-encompassing, and the pressure at those levels is so hard to differentiate. I can't even imagine going that far down. I remember trying to swim down in a public wave pool as a child and finding that the pressure on my ears and body was unbearable. I've also heard that hallucinations, or odd experiences, are relatively common for divers. We're talking, I just saw another diver give me a bunch of generally understood hand gestures and then they were gone levels of hallucinations. Story 35. Everything about the Marianas Trench scares the shit out of me. The fact that it's 36,000 feet deep, as far as we know, and that light doesn't even penetrate water past 3,200 feet is mind-blowing to me. For reference, Mount Everest is 29,000 feet tall, which means you could fit Everest into the trench, in terms of height, not necessarily mass, and light wouldn't even hit it. It would be entirely submerged in darkness. The thought of thousands of feet of cold, dark water is an absolute nightmare in my opinion. Story 36. Having grown up by the North Atlantic, rogue waves. Don't walk on the wet rocks or anywhere near them. Also had my head pushed underwater and hit against a rock on a calm, placid day a few feet from shore, where I'd been swimming since I was a kid. Seriously, you need to be careful even where you're most comfortable. Story 37. There are blue holes in the Bahamas which are all connected by miles of underwater caverns. Only 8% of it has been explored by humans. The blue holes serve as fun little swimming holes, and the water is clear and you can see to the bottom, at least on some I've read. Sometimes people just disappear from them while swimming with friends. Like, there are reports of people turning around, then back around and their buddy is gone. There are rumors of tentacles pulling people under. Fun fact, octopi don't stop growing. Another fun fact, they can fit anywhere their jaw/beak can fit. Another fun fact, they are bottom dwellers. Not saying Lusca is real, just saying, well, I don't know man, but you'll never catch me in a blue hole. Story 38. The bones of millions of people are down there. I think of slave traders and people stolen from their homes, refugees, explorers, sailors who died in wars, plane crashes, lost ships, anyone who set out on the big water and didn't return and was never found.